Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. Dear brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ, welcome to the Whispers of Grace. Lent is indeed a season of grace, a time when God's mercy and love poured out upon us. Lent is a season of renewal, renewing our commitment to God and our faith. Lent is a season of reflection, reflecting on our lives, actions, and relationship. Lent is a season of repentance, turning away from the sins and coming closer to God's love. Lent is a restoration, allowing God to restore and heal us. Dear brothers and sisters, today's readings reminds us of the importance of trusting in God's provision and being faithful to His will. In Deuteronomy chapter 26, verse 4 to 10, we hear how the Israelites were instructed to offer the tithe of their harvest to God, expressing gratitude for His provision. This act of worship acknowledges God's goodness and recognizes His hand in their lives. In Romans chapter 10, verse 8 to 13, St. Paul emphasizes the importance of confessing faith in Jesus Christ and highlighting that salvation comes through faith. This confession is not just a one-time event, but an ongoing process of trusting in God's provision and goodness. In St. Luke chapter 4, verse 1 to 13, we see Jesus' faithfulness to God's will, even in the face of temptation. Jesus' response to Satan's temptations demonstrate his trust in God's provision and goodness. He knows that God will provide for him and that he does not need to rely on his own strength and resources. These readings encourage us to cultivate faithfulness and trust in God's provision. We are called to recognize that God is the ultimate source of all we need and to rely on His goodness and mercy. But trusting in God's provision is not always easy. We face challenges and uncertainties in our lives, and it's tempting to rely on our own strength and resources. Yet, when we do, we can easily become anxious and fearful. As Christians, we are called to trust in God's provision even when we don't understand His ways. We are called to be faithful, to persevere in prayer and rely on His goodness and mercy. Let's ask ourselves, do we trust in God's provision? Do we rely on His goodness and mercy? Or do we rely on our own strength and resources? May we learn to trust in God's provision, and may we cultivate faithfulness in our lives. May we recognize that God is the ultimate source of all we need, and may we rely on His goodness and mercy. As we move forward, let us remember that trusting in God's provision is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process. It requires us to be faithful, to persevere in prayer, and to rely on His goodness and mercy. May we be inspired by Jesus' example, and may we trust in God's provision, even in the face of temptation and uncertainty.